Alright, so we're doing something really different tonight. I thought it'd be a nice little change of pace. We're going to be doing some papercraft, origami, foldable computers, whatever you want to call them. Tonight we're going to be doing the Commodore 64 and the Apple II. I got all of these off of a website, rockybergen.com. I'm going to put a link down below. It got a lot of computers on there that you could print out and make. Amigas, Amstrads, Lisas, IBM, even a really cool 8080, the PCS-80 system. Check the website out. I think this is really cool. It's something that you can add, maybe put it on top of your computer as a little display. So let's take a look at them real quick. I printed these out on 24-pound paper. Honestly, I probably should have went a little thicker in hindsight, but I think this will do. So we have, looking at the Commodore here, we have the bread bin, there is a VIC modem, and they also have screen overlays that you can put in the screen of the monitor. Here's the 1701, and when we finish this, we'll put it up next to my Commodore and my 1702, see how it looks. We even have a 1541. Over here is the Apple II. So this is just the Apple II, not the 2E. With the raised power switch, the classic Apple II monitor, and then a whole bunch of monitor screens that you can put. We got Oregon Trail, Ultima. Yeah, this is great. These are really cool. I'm honestly not going to use these. I kind of like the classic Apple startup screen. So, okay, well, let's get started here. Not really any agenda with this video. We're just going to be making some papercraft and talking about it a little bit. We'll start with the Commodore 64. We'll just cut it out and I'll fine trim everything a little later. I didn't get a Commodore 64 till probably about a year ago. It's something I wanted for a long time. I just never found one locally that was at a reasonable price, and I really wanted a 1701 or 1702 to go with it. Unfortunately, I got my 1702 about 6 months after I got my Commodore 64. When I got the 64, it was pretty much mint. There was nothing wrong with it. I bought it on Facebook Marketplace, and it was a gentleman who basically just buys out storage sheds, old barns, whatever, and just sells whatever he has. And he just posted it as old computer on Facebook. It was something like, I think he wanted like $55 for the bread bin itself, 2 1541s, a bunch of floppies, VIC modem. I think it came with a printer too, the 802, I believe, and a power supply. Although I dare not use his power supply, I ordered a modern replacement just to be safe. But yeah, I think I did pretty good with it. Obviously, he didn't know what he had, and honestly, I don't think he really cared. I think he just wanted to move it because he knew his regular clients weren't interested in older computers. So, but that's fine. That was a plus for me. Stuff like this isn't really the direction I thought would be going on the channel, but this is a nice little break. It's a little relaxing. Be something if you had older kids. This would be a good thing to do with them. We can talk about the systems, how they differ from computers today. Even if you don't have these machines, it'd be a really good learning point for them, because even the design of the Commodore 64 is so different than anything we have today that a lot of younger individuals just don't get it. They see the Commodore 64 and they just think it's a very chunky keyboard when that can't be further from the truth. It's its own computer that, from a historical perspective, really changed the way computers were thought about. It was, like the advertising said, it was the computer for the masses. not the classes, unlike the competitor, which we're going to be making here in a second, the Apple II. You know, Commodore was really supposed to be an affordable machine, and a machine that anybody can pick up and use right out of the box. That was one of the brilliant things about Commodore. Although you did need software with it, so by itself it couldn't do much unless you were going to write basic programs. But the Commodore manual, if you can ever get your hands on an original Commodore manual, you will learn more about the Commodore 64 and BASIC than anything else. It's a very well written manual, and you know, it's a far cry from any manuals you'll get today with computers. They don't. But that's changed. You know, you're not really computing anymore. We were just using programs in a GUI. You don't need to understand how the system works. And it's a double-edged sword. It makes computers more accessible to individuals, but at the same time, I think we're not learning much about the computers we use. And that kind of leads into the issue. Another point I want to do with the channel is repair and education. You know, anymore we are a disposable society. If it doesn't work, throw it away. But things can be fixed. If they can't be fixed, you can at least salvage parts to fix other devices. And we lose a lot of that when we buy computers and machines that, one, are not fixable, and two, don't teach us how to fix them. Right, so I think I'm ready to fold this, and I didn't prepare by bringing a glue stick over. So I'm going to walk away real quick and get a glue stick, and we'll continue this. Alright, I had to steal this from my 3D printer. So let's see. So we do want to have the curved front. So we don't want to do too much of a bend, but we want to get it to stay. It wouldn't be the right scale, but this would look really nice up against with some of those miniature arcade systems, especially the ones you see LGR show a lot on his channel. You know, I think miniatures, whether it's computers or upright arcade cabinets, I think it's a great way to get the hobby into people who otherwise maybe couldn't afford it or don't have the room for it. It just also looks cool. I mean, I don't have any of those miniature arcades, but I think they would look really great up on a shelf, all running together. And even miniatures like the Commodore 64 miniature that is out, or I think I call it Commodore Max. You know, I have no interest in it because I have an original machine with a Pi 1541, but it is a great way to get people into the hobby in an affordable and reliable way, because they're not dealing with the older technology that could fail on them. You're not having to deal with floppy disks or actually just sourcing anything. And then the reliability. You know, those new Commodores, you're not dealing with old hardware, so you don't have to worry about your SID chip dying on you or trying to find a replacement, power supply that supplies incorrect voltage that fries your machine. It's just a real easy way for people to get into the hobby, start experiencing it. And I think it's great for, even for coders too. You know, I think there is merit to learn the older languages. Now mind you, you're not going to use it in a professional way. You're not going to actually, you know, you're not going to put BASIC on your resume and try to get a job with that. But I think one thing is it teaches you resource management. You know, when you had to fit an entire game on a floppy disk, or even less, you know, say an audio cassette and have it load in a reasonable amount of time, you really learn resource management. This is not going as well as what I thought it would, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I didn't expect this to be perfect. So that's pretty good. That's not too horrible. We'll put it to the side, let the back dry up a little bit, but that doesn't look too bad. So let's move over to 1701. This should be I think a little easier because it's bigger, but who knows. Like I said, I have a 1702. Really, there's no difference between the two monitors. I think these monitors are great. If you look at my earlier video, I compare it to a PVM and say, why do you need a PVM when you have a 1701 or a 1702? And I'm half joking with that. I mean, there are merits to having a PVM. Incredibly crisp monitors, but you're paying a premium for it. Some of these can go into the thousands of dollars for a PVM, and of course they're used. They're probably from a studio, some sort of broadcast house, so they have many hours onto them. I actually used to work at a television station, and we would just leave these things on all the time. We would never turn them off. So countless hours on these devices, and again, they need work, they need love, and they need to replace some capacitors, they need to do work on them. But that goes with anything. And I think that the 1701, 1702s, although not as sharp, you're not going to get RGB out of them. You will get S-video. They call it Commodore video, so that's nice to have that. But these things are tanks. I really haven't had a lot of experience with them failing. If they do, it usually seems to be a recap, a relatively easy repair, and the best thing is that the chassis is really great to work on. There's a lot of room inside of it. You can pull the whole bottom board out and have easy access to everything in it, and it just looks great. I think it's a really good looking monitor. Not just the image quality, but the design of it as well. It really fits that, early to mid 80s aesthetic, and it still looks good today. And even if you play videos on it, or even some modern video games, if you can get the video into something that the monitor will accept, it looks great. It really does. I didn't put it in the video, but when I was testing and setting up for the video, I had my N64 up to it. With S-video, I made an adapter, and I was playing GoldenEye on it. I couldn't tell you how long I was actually playing, and I lost track of time, but it just looked so good. And that's kind of the benefit of a smaller monitor. I think you can get away with a little less image quality on a smaller monitor and have just a good experience, if not better, than if you had a large pro or prosumer grade monitor and at a fraction of the price. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people that are attempting to sell 1701s and 1702s for outrageous prices. But if you look, do some saved searches, keep looking on Facebook Marketplace, you can find these things for under $100. The one I had was posted for $75. I think I told the guy, hey, $50 and I'll pick it up today, and that was a done deal right there. A lot of people want to get CRTs out of their house. They're big, they're bulky, they don't see a need for them anymore. But if you're a gamer, if you use older computer systems, you definitely see a benefit in having a CRT with the better refresh rate, no lag, and it just completes the picture. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a time where I had an Apple II hooked up to an LCD, and it worked. It worked fine. It's not going to change the way the machine works, but it just looks so much better with period correct hardware Commodore looks better with a 1701 or 1702 or an Amdec if you can get your hands on it. You want your Apples with Apple hardware. I mean, I couldn't imagine my 2GS with any other display medium than the Apple monitor I have with it. It's just, it's part of the collection. You want period correct devices. It's just like you know, anybody who works on classic cars, you want as much period correct items as you can. It just makes the experience that much more authentic. Alright, let's see if this monitor goes together a little easier or better than the bread bin itself. I think what I'll do is I'm going to have two versions of this video, a long one, relatively unedited, and then call it an express version where you can just get straight to the end product, maybe a little fast forward montage of putting everything together. Because again, this might not be for everybody. Maybe you just want to see the end product. Maybe you don't want to see this at all. Let me know in the comments what you think about technology, non-technology related videos like this. Like I said, I think it's just a fun little break. I'm actually in between some videos right now. Right before I did this, and you know, we'll kind of spoil some of the magic, I was working on part 2 of the PlayStation 3. You know, these videos take time, especially when you're doing repairs. If you need to order parts, sometimes you just need a break. And it's nice to do stuff like this and clear your mind a little bit. This is looking really, really good. And there's a lot of detail on these monitors. You have, you know, Commodore video on the back, the stickers on there. I mean, everything is just correct. And he actually, you know, these aren't pictures. These aren't pictures of devices. This is something that he drew up and maybe took some artistic freedom. And I'm not gonna, you know, nitpick this down to the detail next to it, but I even got feet on the bottom of the monitor. No, these look great, and obviously, you know, your mileage will vary depending on the printer you use, the paper you use, how much ink or color toner you have, whatever your setup may be. Again, if I did this again, I would probably do a little heavier paper, and yeah, I might even actually get it professionally printed up. That looks good. Got the speaker on top. That looks great. Alright, we'll do the 1541, and that'll be the last thing we're going to do on the Commodore, and then we'll move over to the Apple II. The 1541s I got with this, they were, you know, externally in really good shape. Everything was well cared for, but these were dirty on the inside. Definitely had to do a lot of cleaning just to get them to read anything. But now that I did that, I mean, they work great. Don't have any issues with these. Not my primary means of loading anything. I do have a Pi 1541, which I love original media. I really like the authentic experience of using floppies just like you would have in the 80s, but you know, let's be honest, floppies themselves don't last forever, and if you do have media on a floppy, you don't want to keep reading all the time. So the Pi 1541 is my way to protect the media I have, the original media I have, and still enjoy the software on it. I do have pesky robots from the 8-bit guy both the box version and the digital version, but I'm going to primarily use the digital on my Pi 1541 just to save wear and tear on that floppy. We're going to do a video about Petsky robots too. I think that's I think it's a great thing that we see people making new software for these older machines. Now, mind you, it's not the biggest audience that he's catering to, but it is an audience and it's raising awareness, and that's really the important thing. And again, I think, it might be able to get people interested in the hobby, especially people who code or are interested in coding. Again, I know I said it before, but I think if you want to be a better coder, regardless of what modern language you use, really need to take some time to look at the older languages and how they work. I'm just going to turn this light down a little bit. It's a little brighter than what I would have liked. Let's try that. Hopefully it wasn't too bright for the first half of the video. But yeah, I see a lot of coders just go into GitHub, copy and pasting everything, and you don't know. Let's be honest, you don't know where that code's coming from. You don't know everything that's in there. Are you really utilizing all of those lines? But we don't care. We have, I'll say, almost unlimited resources for programs to run. I mean, if you have a system with, 16, 32, or let's just say even 8 gigs of RAM, that's more than enough for the vast majority of any programs anybody would be running. So if you're coding a program, you're not that concerned about resource management and what those extra lines of code are doing. And of course, that can be a cybersecurity threat, but we're not going to get into that right now. It's just a concern that modern coders don't really have. But if you try to code something and you have actual hard constraints, physical constraints of the system you're coding for, you really need to think about every single line. Is there a better way that we can execute these commands? Something that we don't need to think about in modern operating environments. I'm sure some of you out there probably do origami, we'll say professionally. I'm not professional at this. And you're probably screaming because I probably need to flatten these out better. And if there's probably a tool to actually fold paper like this. And I don't have that. I am not that professional. But if that's you, outstanding. Please comment below. Tell me if I'm doing anything incorrect for what people who do origami or any sort of larger paper craft. I usually do some research before videos, but honestly, I was just really excited to make these. And these will sit on the Commodore. So I have my Commodore 64 permanently set up in my office next to my Apple II GS. So this will sit next to that. I do have a couple Apple IIs, 2Es. I don't have an Apple II, but we'll put the Apple II model next to the 2Es down on the shelves in the workshop. And maybe if I get any more computers on his list, maybe we'll print those out and make those. Probably won't do a whole video on it again, but we'll make those. I think this is nice. Alright, so almost done with this 1541. A lot of people don't realize, if you're in the Commodore scene, you will, but a lot of people don't realize that, these were, the way they were made, the 1541s, if you had two daisy-chained together, so if you wanted 2 drives, you would actually have to open it up and cut a trace to reassign the drive number. Now, somebody out there is saying, oh no, you can do it, you can write a command and do it in software. Yes, you absolutely can. But that's kind of annoying. I don't want to do that. I just want it to work. So you would open it up, you would cut that trace and assign the drive number that way. There were actually 2 traces on there, if I remember correctly, and it would, depending on the combination, if one was cut, one wasn't, or both were cut, that would change the drive number for that drive. And you can daisy chain them together, and a printer would be daisy chained into it as well. But again, these are things that we take for granted today. You know, you can plug whatever you want in your computer, and Windows or Mac OS will take care of it for you. You can have all these USB devices plugged in, and as long as there really isn't a power issue with your hub, the computer will just take care of everything. These were a lot more manual. You had to understand your system, you had to know how it worked. And if you didn't know, well, you'd have to get smart if you wanted to do anything with it other than just running basic programs. But even if you wanted to run basic programs, you had to know a little bit more about the system. And I don't mean basic like the language basic. I just mean just simple things. Like if you just wanted to load up a word processing program from a disk. Alright, we're going to put that next to it, and we'll get ready to go to the Apple IIs. So we'll do the Apple II itself, as well as the Apple monitor. I think these are 2 really interesting computers to look at and to study, because it was really 2 different trains of thought. You know, Commodore, again, they were computers for the masses, not the classes. What you got was pretty much it. You got the Commodore 64, and you were good to go. You could say the same thing with the Apple II. Obviously, you were paying more for the Apple brand, and we even get that today. But these were expandable systems. If you're not familiar, this whole top opens up, and you'll have slots in there for expansion cards. And that was one of the really great things about the Apple II. And that's one of the things that even today makes the whole Apple II line still really fun to own. There's people still making hardware cards for these. You can get RAM cards, you can get video adapters, you know, HDMI. There's all kinds of stuff to help your Apple II keep up, to steal a phrase from Commodore, to keep up with you. And you know, it's really interesting that we have such a great community in this hobby that wants to make new hardware and software for these machines and make them you know, enjoyable and still usable today. You know, I think it's you know, in hindsight, I think, you know, with somebody in the early 80s think that a Commodore 64 or an Apple II would still be in use today, connecting wirelessly to the internet. You know, these aren't things that people would have been thinking about back then. But we're doing it. I mean, my Commodore 64, I have it's hooked up to my Wi-Fi, so I can go on to BBS's on it. I'm actually getting one for my Apple II GS. I don't know why I drug my feet so long on getting an adapter for it, but it's nice to have these computers be able to go on BBS's again and, you know, be interacting with other machines that they would have done in the 80s. I think smaller scissors would have been a little better choice for this. But I think the nice thing about this Apple II one, it's not as curved as the Commodore, so this should, we'll see, it should go together a little easier. And one thing I liked about the Apple IIs, especially now, the audio cassette interface is just jacks. It's just a microphone input and headphone jack that you can get on any tape recorder, unlike the Commodore that was proprietary and digital. So I mean, there's pros and cons for both. But the great thing about this is there is a website, I'll link to it below, that you can stream the Apple game that you want to play for your Apple II. It actually play the WAV file. You can even play it off your cell phone as long as you have it plugged into the back of your computer, and you can play from it right from there. You can write it to a floppy if you have. That's one of the great things. It just makes it very accessible to get to games or programs that are stored like that. Because, again, believe it or not, you would get software on an audio cassette. Alright. So you do that slight little bend at the front, but it's not as curved. Best way to do this, maybe put a little bend here on the top where it goes down. You can probably tell that I did pretty much zero prep work for this, otherwise I would have made these beforehand and at least had a little better idea of what I was getting into, but that's alright. I'm sure if you watch the express version of this video, I'll edit it to make it look like I have a little better idea of what I'm doing. This isn't too bad. And I'm sure there's better glue to be using than Elmer's purple glue, but again, this is what I had right now. And at least for the purposes, this is working just fine. Even have that Apple Computer logo on the bottom. Again, I mean, there's a lot of detail in these monitors, or correction, in these models. You even have all the standoffs on the bottom of the motherboard. The screws go the whole way through that metal bottom. And again, I'm not going to, at least not in this video, side by side it with an actual Apple II, but it certainly looks correct. Looks like the correct number, looks like the correct placement. Alright, we'll set that off to the side. And we'll do the monitor, and then that'll be it. And we'll compare these next to their real-life counterparts. Yeah, these Apple monitors, also these are just tanks too. I have 2 or 3 of these things kicking around. Never had an issue with them. Just really well-built CRTs. It is green only, unlike the 1701, 1702, which are full color. But these are sharp, very sharp. Honestly, I would put this up against an Amdek any day. And I think you would be hard pressed to pick which one you thought looked better, or at least differentiate the two, especially if it was a green Amdek. Although at one time I had a orange phosphor with an Apple II, and I thought that looked great plain Oregon Trail. It's just perfect on that. But I think green has a little more sentimental for me. We had green Apple II monitors in grade school, and that's kind of what we worked on. Actually, the 2GS I have, that's the exact same 2GS that was in our elementary's computer lab. So it's nice to have that and be able to run some of the programs today that I did back in grade school. I don't know if I'm getting better at this, but this seems to be going a little quicker. Alright, do some folds. Try to make these folds a little straighter on this one. I actually crease it to make it sturdier. I know looking over at the 1701 I did a little bit ago, it's starting to get a little puffy because I didn't make these as creased as what I should have. But hey, it's my first time doing this. You can only get better with practice, and you can only learn from your mistakes. Because now, if I ever make one of these again, and I probably will, I'll be much more cognizant of making better creases and probably finding a better way to glue than using a glue stick. See, already that's going better, a lot better. And the great thing about these monitors is it's just an RCA connector on the back. There's no weird proprietary cable you have to deal with. You can plug anything into it, almost anything, and it'll accept it and it'll display it. That was the great thing about stuff like this. You know, it's so flexible as far as what they will display. Same thing with the 1701, 1702, and I think that's why so many people look after those monitors, because they'll take almost anything you throw at them, especially if you have an adapter to S-Video, to Commodore Video, or even modify the case to accept S-Video straight on the back. You know, they're just really great monitors. Same thing with these. If you want a monochrome green monitor to throw on, you know, any older system, this will work. This will take it and it'll look great. Absolutely great. Alright, just a couple more. Once we're done here, before I side-by-side these next to their real-life guys, I'll just take a little more time off camera, clean everything up a little bit, make the glue stick. I thought this one would have been better. Make the glue stick a little better. Maybe tape. We'll see. But that looks pretty good. That looks really good. Same thing with our 64 and our monitor here. So yeah, I'm gonna clean these up a little bit, and we will come back and look at them next to their real life counterparts. All right, so we have the Commodore 64 sitting next to the real Commodore 64 with the 1702 monitor. Yeah, I think it looks really good when you compare it to the real machines. I think the color could be a little better, but that's probably with the printer I used. But overall, I'm really happy with how the Commodore system came out. The Apple II, on the other hand, looks a little crooked. I think I bent the bottom board when I was gluing and taping it together. But it looks really accurate compared to an Apple II, even though I have it next to an Apple IIe here. But again, the color could be a little better. Again, I'll blame that on the printer, but I'm really happy with this one came out as well. As always, if you like what we're doing over here at RTOD, please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.